Health Education Lecture Series. All the listeners of Health Education Lecture Series, I'm your host Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, homeopathic consultant. My clinic address is 9701 Sarah N. Court, Dublin, California 94568. Phone number 408 687 1899. Anytime when you are suffering from any disease at any age and you need second opinion about your disease, or if you want to get treated by a scientific homeopathic approach for your diseases, you can call me at 408 687 1899. And as far as my experience is concerned, it's my 52 years of practice, out of which I was teaching in medical colleges for about 26 years in India. And since 1996, I'm here in California. Since then, I'm teaching my public on various radios, TV shows, and newspaper medias and various other medias, YouTube, Facebook medias, systematically. Though we were teaching and we studied in medical science in English, and we were teaching in medical colleges in English, but nowadays I have started teaching my community, those who are not having medical ground base, so that they can understand the simple language what I'm using. I'm trying to use that language. And all my lectures, mostly all my lectures are in three languages. One day I deliver my lecture in Punjabi, the other day I deliver my lecture in Hindi, and the other day I deliver my lecture in English. So means all the three languages, those who are attached with me on Facebook, YouTube, Sabarang radio station, Radio Pravas, and Radio Punjab, they can listen me on all the three languages. Whatever language they can understand better, they can tune on your medias, whatever media you are using, whether you are on Facebook with me, or whether you are having my YouTube channel subscribed, or the radio, Sabarang radio station, and on different occasions, just like the Punjab radio. Radio Punjab, which is running since many years, the oldest radio in Bay Area, that is delivering my lecture on every Monday. And that lecture is, first of all, in Punjabi. Then after that, it's in Hindi. So in two languages, I'm covering in Radio Punjab, and only one language, that is Radio Pravaz, which is running from New Jersey. I'm delivering my lectures on every alternate day in Punjabi languages. And uh, most of the lecture I start with in my own language, that is Punjabi. So yesterday, when I was delivering this lecture, I have I have described about the development of life after the fertilizations when it reaches into the uterus, mother's womb. What happened over there, and how it develops its life. So all these things. Sorry. So all these things which I explained yesterday in Punjabi would like to repeat in English so that every person can understand. If ever they cannot understand Punjabi or Hindi, they can listen to my lectures in English. So I will repeat it. Just in my back, you can see this whiteboard, and on whiteboard, I have made a sketch of the structures at that time. Previously, when I was uh, delivering, we started this using this whiteboard to explain the things which are the structure, internal structure of the body, and till that we have described about the structures of the females. First of all, I told you about this one, that the female genital organs are all covered under a shelter, under a cover that is known as broad ligament. So uterus, ovary, and fallopian tubes, these are the three major components of the female genital organs with their different parts. And all these organs are covered in the broad ligament in our pelvic area. And the structure says the uterus is composed of three layers. The outer one is the same of broad ligament, which keep the uterus in its position in the central line of the pelvic area. And underneath that broad ligament, there is a big major muscular structure of the uterus that is known as myometrium. And this you can say the outer layer is broad ligament. Inside that, there is a myometrium, the muscle layer, which has a big elasticity. As a lady becomes pregnant and the abdomen enlarges, inside the fetus is enlarging, and the this uterus is also enlarges to give housing to that developing fetus inside that. In this way, these muscular layer is the strongest type of muscles, but they are having the elasticity in that, so that it can enlarge as much as it is required for the babies inside the womb. So ultimately, we have described about the inner layer of the uterus. The inner layer of the uterus is known as endometrium, and that endometrium layer is a different kind of special type of tissues that they are scrapped every month. They are scrapped every month, okay, from the inside of the uterus with the menstrual flow. As far as there is no family life and no sex life, there is no condition of the pregnancy. In that case, in basically you can say the young girls, uh, this layer is shed off with the menstrual bleeding every month, and it is formed every month in each lady after it has been shed off. And this all happens because of the hormones we have described many times in the previous lectures, when we were not using this whiteboard to explain all these things. That when there is a bleeding phase of 7 days, and that is normally the bleeding is 3 to 5 days, and after that 2 days of this completion of this bleeding phase, so complete 7 days period is considered as the bleeding phase, and after that 7 days period is considered as ovarian phase. Ovarian phase means whatever is cleaned up in the uterus. At the same time, estrogen hormone goes at its lower level because it is shed off at the bleeding. Hormones are also component of the blood at that time, and if the blood is drained outside, it means the content of that blood plus the hormones at that time, they are evacuated. And when a concentration of the estrogen hormone goes at a lower level, it sends a signal to the brain, to the pituitary gland, that the estrogen level has fallen down. And at the same time, pituitary gland produces a new hormones just to restart the cycle, reestablish again. Pituitary hormone produces a hormone known as follicular stimulating hormone and LH hormone. LH regularly continued to be produced, but based mainly after the bleeding period is over, follicular stimulating hormone is liberated. And that follicular hormone stimulates the ovary to produce oocytes from the inner lining, because the ovary is a oval shape, and in it has two layers. The outer layer is the cortex, the inner layer is the medulla, and the outermost layer is, because it's also covered in the broad ligament, the same thing. So ultimately, in the middle, in the inner layer, that is the medulla layer of the ovary, it starts regenerating the oocytes. These are oocytes. Just you can say that a new growth is coming up from the inner wall of the ovaries after the bleeding period of 7 days is over, under the effect of follicular stimulating hormones. And then after that, these oocytes grow all around inside the ovary, and ultimately one of them grows into Graafian follicles. That Graafian follicles inside lodges the ovum, and these oocytes, when develop, enlarge, cover up most of the part of the ovary inside, they start oozing a secretion that is known as estrogen hormone. And that estrogen hormone again goes into the blood circulation and also goes to the uterus as well, at the same time circulating throughout the blood of the body at that time. And then it also acts on the inner lining of the uterus, that's the endometrium we have just described, which was shed off during the menstrual bleedings. And ultimately this layer is reformed again under effect of follicular stimulating hormone. And again, blood vessels and everything, fat and whatever is required for this one, because if there is a pregnancy, that developing pregnancy needs at that time oxygen, food, all that things. So this inner layer of the uterus has all the components which are required by the developing embryo at that time, and after that fetus inside the uterus. At the same time, this when this estrogen hormone is produced by the oocytes, and one of them becomes Graafian follicles, which has inside it the ovum. It develops the ovum inside. One of them oocytes develop into the ovum, you can say, in the other shapes. Okay, and that ovum has a outer covering that is known as Graafian follicle, and inside that there is a ovum of the female, that you can say the female egg is lodged in the Graafian follicles. And ultimately this phase is also of 7 days after the bleeding period. Just make it sure that all the calculations which are done for the menstruations, related to pregnancy, are counted from the first day of last menstruation of a female. Suppose if a lady comes to us and she is pregnant, and how we can figure it out? The first thing we ask the questions: when was your first day of your last menstruation? When you menstruated last? And if she is pregnant, she will tell you the date, that this was the last month or last to last month. From this date was the first day of my menstruations. So that is the beginning of the bleeding period. Okay. And that is the beginning of the periods in normal cycles. If it's pregnant, she is pregnant, there will be no bleeding. But in the routine physiological factors, this bleeding is having from that very day up to 7 days. And after 7 days, I told you, is considered as the luteal phase, as the, you can say, the ovarian phase. Okay. Or in this phase, I told you, the inside of the uterus, the inner layer of the uterus, medulla of the uterus, starts developing oocytes. And those oocytes grow from periphery towards the center, and out of those, one develops into a Graafian follicles that becomes the larger one. And our other oocytes shed off a hormone which is known as estrogen hormones. And this one oocytes, one Graafian follicle which has already developed more than the others oocytes, is just like a boat is in the sea. All around you can see there is a water and water and water, and inside that water there you can see a boat standing over there. In that way, this Graafian follicles start developing in the middle of the ovary and start developing continuously under effect of the LH hormone again, and ultimately it touches the wall of the ovary at one end, at one side. And after a week, after completion of a week from that one, ovary is ruptured. Ovary is ruptured under effect of the same both hormones, LH hormone, luteinizing hormones, and also the estrogen hormones. And then the day when this Graafian follicle oozes out the ovum out of ovary is considered ovulation. And that ovulation is a condition which happens 14 days before the next onset of menstruation. If there is no family life, if there is no sexual life in a lady, then, and the lady is having a regular menstruation, that is after every 28 days, then at the time of ovulation, 14 days are lapsed. And the remaining 14 days are a fixed period, that when this fertilized ovum may become embryo or may be destroyed and flooded out from the uterus. So this is what the fate of that ovum at that time, the day when it is liberated from the ovary, when it is discharged from the ovary, that point of this circle, menstrual cycle, is known as ovulations. In this way, but sometimes you may have a question in your mind that some of the ladies, they do not menstruate after 28 days. They menstruate after 30 days or 35 days or 20 days or whatever. There are different days. So you should keep in mind, after ovulation, 14 days is a fixed period for the survival of this ovum, or to die after that, or to be flooded out from the uterus in that. So that is the period, fixed period by the nature, that it is after 14 days. And then if the menstruation is less than 28 days, or if it is more than 28 days, it indicates something is wrong with the hormones which are responsible for the previous 14 days, for the previous days, from this 14 days, maybe more or less. The hormones, we have already told you, it is the follicular stimulating hormone, it is the LH hormone, it is the estrogen hormone. So all these hormones play a role in the formation of ovulation. And if the role of these three hormones is delayed or is fast, it will change the cycle, menstrual cycle in a lady. This may become less than 28 days. If this is too early, that the ovum has been liberated from the ovary, not 14 days, maybe 10 days, maybe 8 days after the bleeding period is over. If the estrogen hormone, if the LH hormone, if the follicular hormones are very fast, then ultimately this ovulation may happen early than normal. And ultimately the next 14 days is fixed. And if the previous 14 days has been discounted because of these hormones, it means a lady may menstruate less than 28 days. And if a lady is menstruating more than 28 days, 30 days, 35, whatever it is, so must acknowledge that this delay of menstrual period is depending upon the liberation of these three hormones: estrogen hormone, follicular stimulating hormone, and LH hormones. They are the preliminary hormones to start the cycle, to start the new cycle or to start the cycles. And if they are delay in their concentration, in their productions, ultimately the process of ovulation will be slowed down. But I told you, after the ovulation, the time is fixed. That is of 14 days. It means, again, I'm repeating this thing. It means if ever there be any change of days in a menstrual cycle in a female, that is only because of the before ovulation period. And that is only because of the hormones liberated at that time. And these are three hormones. So, in this way, these three hormones are responsible for early or delayed menstruations. And we should look for that one, if they are late or if they are early. Why? Normal period is 28 days. So, next thing, ovulation. I described yesterday in Punjabi media. After the ovulations, this ovum starts floating inside the broad ligament, which is covering all the genital organs, female genital organs in the abdomen. And ultimately, by floating, it enters into the fallopian tubes. The structure of fallopian tubes, I've told you that the end of the fallopian tube, which is united with the uterus, is at a lower level from the outward end of the fallopian tubes and within the broad ligaments. So level of that end is a little higher than the level of junction of the fallopian tubes with the uterus, where it unites with the uterus, which facilitates this ovum, if it has entered into the fimbriated end of the fallopian tubes, then it facilitates to radiate this ovum towards the uterus. Then it goes in that way. Though there are other factors related to this one. I told you about the uterine shuffle movements, which is a regular movement in the uterus and the adult females regularly, but we do not feel it when it's normal physiological, just like the heart is pumping 72 to 80 times per minute, but we do not feel it. The same way the respiration is going from 14 to 16 times a minute, but we do not feel it. Same way, uterine shuffle is a specific type of movement of the uterus when the girl become adolescence age. That movement starts under effect of the hormones, but we do not feel it. We feel it, a lady feel it when there is something abnormal of those hormones which are producing this uterine shuffle movements. And those are these hormones. I told you about the estrogen, progesterone, estrogen, follicular stimulating, and LH hormones. They produce these type of movements. But these are normal movements which are not felt by normally by the ladies and do not feel any pain during menstruations and even before and after menstruations. But some of the lady feels pains in the uterine area before and after menstruations because of this excessive uterine suffers, excessive movements of the uterus. So I was telling you that after being liberated from the ovary, this ovum travels in between the broad ligament and ultimately it reaches to the outer end of the fallopian tubes, that is known as fimbriated end. And then after that, it started traveling towards the uterus. It has a limited period. It has a limited period to reach to the uterus. That's 7 days. On 21st day, 7 days bleeding, 7 days ovarian phase, 7 days traveling from the ovary to the uterus is a period. And there are some other factors which can cause problems for this journey of 7 days. May early or may late, late delayed reaching into the uterus because of some factor that is also the hormones. That's also the movements of the uterus. That's also the movement with which this ovum travels, radiates toward the uterus, and also the length of the fallopian tube also plays a major role. The normal length of the fallopian tube is 10 to 12 centimeter, which it passes after being discharged from the ovary. That's the ovulation period. It enters into the uterus after 7 days, means 21 days. And we are considering that there is no life of you can the guest life or the family life. There is no sexual intercourse. There is no spermatozoas coming up to meet this ovum. So in this way, ultimately, it reaches on 21st day into the uterus. But at that time, until that, it's not having a specific type of development inside it so that it can adjust himself into the uterine wall. And if it's not able to adjust himself into the uterine wall, so in these conditions, it is unable to fix himself. And till then, till then, the production of estrogen is still going on. Production of LH hormone is still going on. And under these conditions, under layer of the uterus, the endometrial layer of the uterus develops into a soft bed, which has all the requirements which are required for the embryo to develop over there. But this ovum is not fertilized, means it did not get any spermatozoas. That is why it has no special type of development, and ultimately, these blood vessels into the endometrial layer, the inner linings of the uterus, which was developed into a bed, ruptured itself with the movements. These are targeted with the blood, and ultimately, they are ruptured. Blood oozes. Though there is two things, the placenta is not formed, estrogen and LH hormones are playing and to you can say fill these blood vessels and creating excitement. Ultimately, under effect of estrogen and LH hormone, these are ruptured. No, there are some types blockage because the corpus luteum, which was the remaining portion in the ovary when this ovum was liberated out from the ovary, that produces some type of hormone, which is a progesterone type, progesterone hormones that also goes into the blood, and that sometimes helps this ovum to stay longer. Thus, you can say they stay longer, but it is not fertilized. There is no question of developing the pregnancy, but it can make this ovum to stay longer. Under those conditions, when this ovum is not fertilized, when this ovum is not able to adjust himself into the inner lining of the uterus, ultimately, till then, the blood vessels in the endometrial, the inner lining of the uterus, are ruptured, turgated, tensed, rubs with each other, with the flotations or with the movements, and ultimately blood comes out. And when this blood comes out, it washed out itself, means the endometrial layer, as well as this ovum which was not fertilized with the sperm. So it start again the cycles. So in this way, you can say the four phases we consider of the menstruations of each varies for 1 week normally, and 1 week bleeding, 1 week ovarian phase, and the 1 week you can say the traveling of ovum to the uterus, and 1 week again the circle. So it means the complete cycle has four different ways. In this way, it takes about 7 days to start bleeding. Ultimately, come to the other phase, how the life was created. Ultimately, in other way, when this ovum comes into the fallopian tube, and into the fallopian tubes, it meets with the spermatozoas. And how it meets with the spermatozoas, I have already told you about this one, that when spermatozoa enters into the fallopian tube via female genital organs upward from the vagina to the uterus to the fallopian tubes, and ultimately they met. They surrounds the ovum. Spermatozoa, they surrounds the ovum, and then ultimately the outer layer, outer shell of this egg is a strong one, hard one, and they are unable to pierce this one. They are unable to pierce this one, and ultimately their food material, whatever they were having, is now finished. Under those conditions, these spermatozoas were having approximately 5 days food when they reaches into the uterus or the female genital organs. The 5 days food they were having means, if they did not get the ovum in time, they can stay there in the fallopian tubes. They can wait for the ovum to come, and they can wait for 5 days. Means they can survive up to that one. And ultimately, when the ovum comes over there and they surrounds the ovum, and ultimately they are unable to enter into the ovum because of the hard outer shell that is known as corona radiata. And when they are unable to enter into the ovum, they are died. All they died. That is known as a process of autolysis. Autolysis. And after this autolysis, they are killed. And with that reaction, acidic reaction which is produced over there with the autolysis, the outer shell of the ovum, that is corona radiata, also turned soft. And then the late coming sperm, mostly, the late coming sperm is able now to enter into the ovum. It enters into the ovum, and only head of the ovum is able to enter into it. And then we can say this ovum is fertilized, means pregnancy has started. And about this pregnancy, I have already told you that this is not a simple process that it enters and the pregnancy starts, that's over. No, a big fight, a big incidences area is over here, that the sperm head which was entering, the only the head was entering into the ovum. It's not possible that the whole sperm can go and enter into it. The body, neck, body, and tail remains outside. The only head of the sperm enters into the ovum, and ultimately it is closed tight. And because of the ovum's yolk sac, you can say, ovum is still there, and in one sac the two things are entering, and it creates tension inside that. And when it creates tension inside that, ultimately there is no other alternative for these two to join friendly hands. Otherwise it will not be possible, because the sperm head was having, which is coming from the male side, the sperm head was having 23 pairs of chromosomes, out of which one mm, uh, 22 pairs are the body chromosomes, which do not play any part in the characteristic of the family genetics, and the one pair has chromosomes of X and Y. They contain X and Y, whereas the ovum itself, which has been intruded with the spermatozoas, has X and X chromosomes in that. And those X and X chromosomes, actually, they fight for their survival. And out of these two, one comes forward, which one is the stronger one. The same way, the head of the sperm which entered into the ovum has 23 chromosomes, pair of chromosomes, out of which one pair is having X and Y chromosomes. They also fight for the survivals. And ultimately, the which one is the stronger one, that comes forward. And both the stronger X of the female ovum and the stronger one, whatever it is, X or Y, of the male head, they unite together and form one body. And ultimately, pregnancy starts with a characteristic, that what will be the new life, male or female? What will be his characteristics? Whether it will attain the characteristics of the male family backgrounds, or it will attain the characteristics of the female family or the backgrounds. So ultimately, either of the two, one will hold the title. And if the X of the male is stronger, and female is already having X and X, and those two X matches with each other, the definitely new life will develop as a female life. And whereas if it is contrary to that, if it is contrary to that, and the Y of the sperm head is stronger from his counterpart, the X one, and that is fighting with the X chromosomes, the stronger X chromosomes of the ovum, one, and ultimately again it attains the supremacy. Then the new life will, which will start developing from now onward, will be of a male child. I'm giving pressure on this line, because there are most of the saints, this and that, Jyotish, and many things we do that to get the male child. It's not possible. At this time, it is not possible. Whatever has to happen, it has already happened. And if ever you have to do to try that one, that is mixed and match. That is, you can just like the Kismat Puriya. That depends on that one. What will match and who will be the stronger one. Many of the people think that this is Suraj Gun and all those things. Uh, they can consider it that yes, if you use this thing, then the new life will develop in the male child. But if you do not use this thing, the child in the new developing life may be the female lives. But this is not possible. Whereas the physiology of the genetics characteristic is concerned, the X and Y chromosomes of the male are responsible mainly for the development of the new life, whether it will be a female, whether it will be a male. And that has happened on that very day. That is mostly after 48 hours of the ovulation. And now all you know that that ovulation was happening 14 days before the next onset of menstruation, when the next menses will start. And before that, this ovulation has happened. And after the ovulation, this condition happens within 48 hours, when ovum goes into the fallopian tubes. And whether the spermatozoas are waiting over there or the spermatozoas are coming after that, ultimately they meet, and their meeting resulted in that condition, whether the XX of chromosomes of females are winning the race, whether the XY of male chromosomes are winning the race. And even in the male race, if X chromosomes is a stronger one, even then there are three chances of a female. There are three chances of a female child in every male, in every pregnancy. And there is only one chance that the pregnancy may develop as a male child. It's a nature's fact. You cannot change this one. This is natural things. And there are three X, only one Y. And whatever it is a stronger one, just for examples, if the X of the male child is also stronger, then it's a definite that the new developing life will be a female child. But if the Y chromosomes of the male sperm head is stronger, then yes, the new life will develop into the new life, but it is not certain. It is not certain, as I described many times in my previous lectures, that this fight goes on. Though a structural formation has started here, but still the fight is going on. And I told you that this child, sometimes we detect it by ultrasound 20th week. After the 20th week means fifth month of the pregnancy, and the doctor declares that you are having a male child or you are having a female child. Mostly discrepancy comes when the doctor says you are having a male child. But after 40th week, when there is a delivery, then doctor says, yeah, you born a girl. And sometimes it's a medical legal questions that you have changed our baby, because previously in our ultrasound it was told that you are having a male boy, but now you are giving us the female child. So in this way, now there are very many techniques to avoid all these things, that the husband should stand by at that time when there is the delivery is going on, so that there should not be any chance that you can blame to the doctors that you have mixed our child. But it happens because that fight of the chromosomes is still going on. And I also told you according to the genetic study, that fight is still not over. Okay, doctor says that this is your female child, but ultimately your wife was still stronger and it was still fighting for its position. And when the adolescence age comes, and ultimately you might have heard that, oh, that girl has become boy, or sometimes vice versa, a boy has becomes girl. That's why it's not something astonishing. It's all because the genetically what was happening inside in the genes. With the fight of the genes, it was happening already inside that one out of X or Y is overpowering over time. Once it was the X was overpowering, the other time it was Y overpowering, and ultimately vice versa. It goes up to the adolescence age. And even furthermore, I told you about this one that it is not over still. At this phase, it is not still over. You might have seen many cases in these conditions that a child is a grown up child, a girl or a boy is a grown up child now. And parents are thinking that now we will get try to find out some girl for my boy, or I will find out some boy for my girl. And ultimately, that girl speaks out, that boy speaks out. No, I do not want to get married with the girl. I do not want to get married with the male. Eh, astonishing. It's all because the mentality is covered by one genes and the physique of the body. That physically a person looks like male. Physically, a person is look like male, but he do not want. He is not attracted towards the girls, which is a normal phenomena, natural phenomena of the hormones. It's not happening over there. And ultimately, a girl which was developed up to adolescence age as a girl, she do not want to marry with a boy. She want to marry with a girl because mentally the status is occupied by the X chromosomes. In this way, all these things are now natural, now normal because we learned it. We learned the nature. We study the nature and we find out why these things are happening because these things are happening. And we were thinking, oh, this is something unusual has happened. And now, when the medical science has gone through it to find out this thing, why it happens, now we know this. Now we know this. This is all because of the genetic characters replacement of each other. Genes replace each other. Whosoever is stronger at one time may not be stronger at the next time. So he represents himself. He represents the different position in the mind. Mind is different, body is different. In this way, it may happen in the males, it may happen in the females as well. So now let's come back again to the when this ovum was fertilized. We were at that point. From there, I came up to these conditions. We are at these conditions that the late coming sperm is now because all other sperms which were surrounding the ovum they are killed by the autolysis process. They were unable to enter into the ovum, and ultimately the late coming sperms enter into the ovum. His head is entered, and ultimately whatever the stronger one, this is what we are discussing now, gives shape to the body developing inside the ovum. But here our question is that it is still in the fallopian tubes. It still has to go to the uterus where it can develop, where it can find a sufficient space to develop, because in this fallopian tubes it's not having sufficient space to develop himself in a large size. And ultimately, because of the increased tension inside the mm, this corona radiata, because its name is changed, it's converted into blastocyst, trophoblast, blastocysts. These are the different names as the stages we are giving to this fertilized ovum. And ultimately, because of the inner tension, inner pressure, because of the two things are wrapped up in one gap, in one envelope. So ultimately, that tension increases a finger-like projection on the surroundings of the ovum, on the corona radiata, you can say. And ultimately, this ovum travels toward the uterus. That's normal, because ultimately the end of the fimbriated of the fallopian tube was up at level, and the junction with the uterus is down at level. And ultimately, with the movements of the chorionic villi, it travels towards that. And it's a condition for this fertilized ovum, though the life has started, but it's a condition for it. The first exam, first test of this one is that this has to reach within 7 days into the uterus. If it is not within 7 days, what will happen? Because when they multiply, when they meet each other, 23 pairs of chromosomes were of the male and sperm, and the 23 pairs of the female eggs. They were uniting each other, and at that time they were forming 46. And ultimately, there's no way that they can run in these conditions. Ultimately, they fuse with each other, and when they fuse with each other, that's known as meiosis division, and ultimately they match up. And again, from 46, there becomes 23 pairs of chromosomes. And then ultimately, the new life has started. And these 23 pairs of chromosomes, they start developing 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 6, 8 to 16, and 16 to 32. Like that one, they start developing, and they start traveling towards the uterus as well. And when they are starting traveling towards the uterus as well, and they are having a limited period of 21 days to enter into the uterus, there are some conditions. Sometimes the normal fallopian tube is from 10 to 12 centimeters. And if the tube is longer than normal, it may take long time to reach to the uterus. If smaller, no matter, it can go easily into the uterus. And fertilized ovum, there is only 1 millimeter hole from fallopian tube to the uterus. To enter into the uterus, it enters. If it is not larger, more than 1 millimeter, it goes enter into the uterus. And because it is having a finger-like projections outside, and because of the increasing, ever increasing pressure inside, these finger-like projections becomes more tense. And the inner layer of the uterus at that time has become soft bed. So they pierce that, they enter into that, and ultimately the actual pregnancy insertion starts inside the uterus. Because this fetus, this embryo, you can say now, is sucking blood from the endometrial layer of the mother, of the female at that time. And when the tension is released, because the blood which was tensing the blood vessels inside the endometrium is now released, because that has been taken up, sucked up by the fertilized ovum. So there is no question of bleeding. And ultimately, that blood becomes the food of the embryo at that time, the developed pregnancy at that time, and then they are inserted. Our time today is over. So then now I can just tell you that the pregnancy has started. After that, we will start this lecture furthermore, how it happens, what it goes on in the next time. This is Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, your homeopathic consultant, and at 9701 Sarah and Court, Dublin, California, 94568. My phone number is 408 687 1899. Anytime, if ever you want to consult me, you can call me at 408 687 1899. And if you want to get treated for any disease at any age, you are fed up from any treatments, please give one chance to homeopathic scientific approach for your health and call 408 687 1899. Wherever you are in the in this globe, you can call me at 408 687 1899, or you can send me an email, homeomedicine, HOMEOMEDICINE at yahoo.com. So you can call me, you can send me an email regarding your health concern, and I can advise you whatever is possible and what help I can do to you. So this is what procedure is going on, that we advise, we only if you are not taking treatment from this facility, yes, we charge a minimum from you, so that we can continuously survive with that one, and you can get the best advice whatever for your sickness is. I can advise you with that one. And if ever you are taking treatment, you are nearby somewhere, and you can call me to discuss each and everything about your disease. Now the time is over. We'll see you next tomorrow. I think tomorrow is a time with the Radio Pravas. So again, it will be in Punjabi. And after Punjabi, the same thing I will repeat in Hindi, because today we have covered with the English lectures. And tomorrow, whatever we will declare in these lectures in Punjabi with the Radio Pravas, we will repeat it in Hindi on the next very day. Rabraka, God bless you all. And again, I am repeating my phone number for your facility, so you can call me at 408 687 1899. Rabraka, God bless you all. Thank you.